Joining me in the studios at this point is Mr. Danlami Bashar. He's the chairman of the United Nations Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in Nigeria. Thank you very much, Mr. Bashar, for your time. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me.
The federal government says it is going to release a set of specific guidelines, which will broadly be in line with what the United Nations and Human Rights Commission and Human Rights Committees have already done about the rights of people with disabilities. Do you think, given our own experience with COVID-19, do you think this will be adequate to protect them at this time that we're also battling with COVID-19?
Well, it's very interesting to hear the federal government say they will work on the rights of persons with disabilities coming this late in the day when COVID-19 has ravaged everywhere. And you agree with me that persons with disabilities have been worst affected in the COVID-19 pandemic.
How so?
Well, persons with disabilities need a lot of support, particularly blind persons, deaf persons. They need a lot of support to get around. And with the issue of physical distancing, you agree that blind persons are worst affected because they operate by touching. So they have to touch whoever they are with, who is supporting them. And then, of course, there hasn't been sufficient information for some persons with disabilities like deaf persons. There's a lack of sign language interpretation on television, in press briefings and so on. And so that has really affected deaf persons. And then it's unfortunate that the COVID-19 has become a tool for abuse of persons with disabilities, by which I mean that some people with disabilities have really been battered as a result of this COVID-19 lockdowns and so on. For example, I know very well that a friend of mine, a blind person who was trying to support his group by trying to distribute palliatives to them, was actually brutalized by, a security person. And so, as a result, we've not really fared very well. And then, distribution of palliatives has been very, very difficult. It hasn't been reaching many persons with disabilities. It's been reaching them in dribs and drabs, but it's not enough to actually ensure that they can stay at home, and get their livelihoods. So there's a lot that...
I remember that first of all, I think that the Presidential Task Force itself now provides, of course, language interpreters for its press briefing. So maybe that may be a step forward for what you're saying about not being able to follow some of the information, particularly for those who are deaf, not blind people.
Yes, I know. Yes, the PTF has been doing its best to provide sign language interpretation. Unfortunately, we find that during the interpretation itself, the camera is often not even on the person interpreting. So a lot of the information is missed. And then that is only in Abuja. What about the rural areas? The deaf persons in the rural areas, they don't get any information. And the blind persons, of course, have not had any information provided to them in written form, in the form they can access. That is Braille. But, well, fortunately, they can listen to television or radio, but it's not enough. They need information in writing.
Has the PTF or any of the agencies concerned with this policy formulation and so on, have they reached out to the groups formed in the community of of persons with disabilities, so that inputs and so on can be made? Or have you, as groups, tried to put together some level of policy yourself and submit to the PTF or the NCDC and so on for review and acceptance, so that forms part of what is done for your community?
And first, I'm not aware that the PTF has reached out in the sense you're talking about. And then as for our organizations, I believe some groups have reached out to the PTF, but we've not had much response. So I was rather surprised this evening to hear that the PTF are adopting guidelines on human rights of persons with disabilities. It's a welcome news, of course. I mean, we do welcome, and we do welcome more of it. But unfortunately, another issue that we are very concerned about is lack of inclusion and participation of persons with disabilities. We're not even sure if there's any person with disability on the PTF, because if there was, there wouldn't be the wrong use of language to describe persons with disabilities, talking about physically challenged, talking about deaf and dumb, and so on. So we have really not yet been fully included or made to participate actively in the work of the PTF. And you remember the convention, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, states very clearly in Article 4.3 that in decision-making processes of whatever nature, persons with disabilities should be involved. So we're calling on the PTF and relevant organs of government to include persons with disabilities in all these aspects. In the aspect of COVID-19, I mean, right from the beginning, we should have been consulted, and I'm not sure there was any consultation that went on.
Now, looking ahead, because again, while we wait for the organs of state and the organs of government to put together whatever it is that they're putting together by way of guidelines and so on, within the committee, and I make reference to the 2019 elections, one of the big issues that came out of that exercise was the issue of statistics and data that to capture people in this specialized communities, persons with disabilities, with how many of them have sight issues, how many of them have hearing issues, and so on. Has that problem been resolved now in terms of the statistics, so that even groups like yours and other such big internationally backed groups can reach out with specific numbers as to what it is that needs to be done in terms of protecting them in the COVID era, in terms of medications, in terms of what to do and all of that?
Well, in terms of the elections, INEC has done fairly well to ensure that some data is gathered. They got together 3 organizations to provide data, to collect data on persons with disabilities. So I think INEC is well placed to be able to work on data for persons with disabilities. But other agencies, other MDAs are still not yet prepared in the area of data collection. And data is very, very critical, you know, in ensuring that rights of persons with disabilities are respected.
I must ask you, because one of the things that has been, the issue has been testing. Has that been extended to the community?
Well, I wouldn't say yes and I wouldn't say no, but testing is a very, very important aspect of COVID-19. But I'm not well informed on that area.
Have you been tested, for example?
I have not been tested, and I doubt if many persons with disabilities have been tested. In fact, you know, in the area of all the equipment, you know, face masks and so on, it's doubtful if many persons with disabilities, particularly blind persons, even know what face masks are. We had to go around Lagos trying to distribute face masks and trying to ensure that persons, blind persons in particular, know how to use the face mask. So, you know, information is out there on television. A non-disabled person can see what is going, they can see what the face mask is, they can see how it is demonstrated, how you can use it. But there is no information for a blind person, for instance. I mean, blind person would need somebody that would explain to him or her the way and manner in which to use the face mask. And then also definitely sign language. I must keep hampering on sign language. There is no sign language yet on television.
So what we have? When we see people do their hands and all of that,
yes,
what is that?
That is sign language, but it's not on television.
Okay, you mean traditionally as part of the whole ensemble?
Yeah, it should be part of everyday use, on television, in press briefings, in public gatherings, and so on. It should like be the norm, really. It should be the norm for in the society, really, so that we can carry these people along with us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Danlami Bashar, Chairman of the United Nations Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.